Thank you for tuning into the Spooky Scary Show, where two friends in two different states discuss all things spooky, creepy, and just downright strange. I'm Dolly.
And I'm Pinky.
And this episode I am so excited for because it is a topic that I live and I breathe for. What's our topic, Pinky?
Aliens.
Yes! I love aliens so much. They're the most magical thing, and I totally believe that they are real and that they are out there. Do you believe in aliens, Pinky?
Yeah, I think it's kind of selfish to say that they're not out there.
Yeah, I totally believe you. Or I totally agree with you, I should say. A while back, growing up kind of religious, I didn't believe in them or whatever, but I don't know. The more you just kind of like scientifical way, just like look at how vast the universe is, there's no way that we're it.
Right, for sure.
And also, Pinky, do you hear that?
What?
The sound of our new microphones.
It's so beautiful.
It's so magical. So now, as long as we don't yell, we will not hurt your precious ears, I promise.
Maybe you won't hear me breathing so much.
Me too. I'm very, like, gaspy. Like, this whole podcast journey has really made me, like, realize a lot of things about myself.
Self-conscious. Yeah.
Yes. Alrighty, so let's jump into it.
What kind of aliens are you going to learn us about today?
Okay, so I wanted to talk about, like, the differences in aliens, like, the good aliens and then, like, the bad kind of aliens, because there's, like, two different spectrums, and I highly believe that, you know, not everything you see is bad, but there are bad aliens. So the first alien I wanted to go over, and Pinky, if you do want to go to the drive, I do have pictures in there.
Okie-dokie.
And, so the first one, they are the Arcturians. The Arcturians teach that the most fundamental ingredient for living in the fifth dimension is love. Negativity, fear, and guilt must be overcome and exchanged for love and light. One of the reasons Earth has not been attacked by warlike negative extraterrestrials has been those civilized fear of the advanced starships of the Arcturians. The Arcturian society is governed by the elders who are revered by the people of Arcturians for their advanced knowledge, wisdom, and extremely high vibrational frequencies. The higher the vibrational frequency, the closer the one is to the light or spirit or, air quote, God, or God molecule, whatever you believe in.
I was just reading about DMT and people taking DMT and how that makes you vibrate on a higher frequency, and how a lot of people on DMT talk about
the God molecule, yes.
Talking to aliens and there being extraterrestrial life when they're experiencing that. I just thought that was kind of cool.
Oh yeah, definitely. And there are some people who are actually against, like, meditating because they believe, you know, when you tune in to the higher frequencies by meditating or by those drugs, you do tune into that different vibrational levels, which is how people believe that they are in contact with aliens. I saw a medium. I don't know her actual title, but she did a reading on me, and then she did a reading on my boyfriend Charlie, and she actually said his guardian angels were not like angels, it was the Arcturians, and her reading was actually very, like, in-depth, and it touched to him on, like, a personal level that he understood, but he doesn't really believe in all that stuff. I just thought it was really cool.
Aliens? He doesn't believe in aliens?
Well, he didn't really buy the medium thing. I mean, he's the biggest hippie you'll meet, but he wasn't really buying what she was saying, because he's like...
But he's, like, obsessed with aliens, and that's what she picked him for.
He's the biggest, like, hippie. I swear to God. I don't know. But anyways, I Googled it, and I thought it was really cool, and then I told him more about the Arcturians, and Anyway, so if you're more of like an empath type of person, then likely you do have them as guardians because you're a starseed and you're here to help make a difference.
Oh, hell yeah.
Hell yeah. Love me my aliens. So the Arcturians are short in physical stature, about 3 or 4 feet tall and slender. They look very much alike, which they're happy about because it erases the pettiness of comparing looks, which is so predominant in Earth society. And they are a very pretty blue color.
They are very pretty, yeah.
And then the bad aliens are known as the Greys. So you have the Greys, also referred to as Zeta Reticulis, the Roswell Greys, or just Grays Gray. 43% of all reported alien encounters in the United States describe the Gray aliens. A composite description derived from this overlap would have Greys as small-bodied beings about 3.5 feet tall, with smooth gray-colored skin, enlarged hairless heads, and the large black eyes. It's like the little green man you see, it's actually the Greys, and they're not green, but these guys, there also exists a possibility that they are a later evolution of the human species, and that over the use of cloning and genetic manipulation has destroyed their DNA and driven them nearly to the point of extinction. This hypothesis could help explain the harvesting of human tissues and the cattle mutilations as an attempt to refresh their own genetic makeup. The Greys are highly intelligent beings, but appear to value science above spirituality. With that being said, they are the guys who abduct people, probe them, and just leave a really traumatizing experience. So their intentions are not as good as other species out there that are meant to protect us.
Interesting. I didn't know the DNA thing. That would explain the harvesting of creatures.
Mm-hmm. Definitely. Skinwalker Ranch is one that I really want to go over. That whole thing is of its own entire entity, but I'd love to go over that sometime.
That was really interesting.
Did you look into it?
We watched it together when you
visited.
Yeah.
That's right. I was thinking of when I told you to pick it as for this topic, but it's been a week, let me tell ya.
Same.
Alrighty, so my story is very famous. I mainly picked it because he is in Arizona, and I'm a sucker for anybody who is in Arizona. So this is the Travis Walton UFO incident. When Travis Walton was 22 years old, he was working a logging contract in central Arizona in the Apache Sitgreaves National Forest. While driving home one evening, Walton and his co-workers came across a hovering disc-shaped object that drew him closer to get a better look. What ensued became known as the Travis Walton UFO incident. Dun, dun, dun.
I was gonna say that. You beat me to it.
Oh, I love it. Walton jumped out of his truck and approached the flying object. Against the will of his colleagues, when he got within close proximity, he was struck with a jolt of energy that hurled him 20 feet through the air, knocking him unconscious and scaring off his friends. So what kind of friends you got? If you get hit by lightning, and they're just like, I'm gonna leave, I'd be like, nah, bitch, you better come pick up my limp body, throw me in the truck, and take me with you.
Right? They all just ditch him?
Yeah!
Messed
they're like,
up.
Bye!
Jeez.
Walton allegedly woke up laying on a gurney in what he thought was a hospital emergency room. His chest was heavy and his vision blurry as he struggled to gather his bearings and figure out where he was. But when he focused his line of sight, he found a trio of extraterrestrials wearing orange surgical gowns staring at him with luminous brown eyes the size of quarters.
Screw that.
I know. He stated in his book, and I quote, "I looked at the vague but reassuring forms of the doctors around me. Abruptly my vision cleared. The sudden horror of what I saw rocked me as I realized I was definitely not in a hospital. I was looking square into the face of a horrible creature, with huge, luminous brown eyes the size of quarters. I looked frantically around me. There were 3 of them. Hysteria overcame me instantly." To me, maybe I'm looking a little bit too much into it, but he says, with huge, luminous brown eyes the size of quarters. That's not big.
Not that big.
Yeah. No. Which he has a lot of problems with people, like, trying to debunk him over the years. But Walton disappeared for nearly a week before he turned up in Snowflake, Arizona, traumatized and bewildered by the chains of events he experienced. After Walton returned, he and the 6 co-workers who supposedly witnessed his abduction submitted to a battery of psychiatric and polygraph tests, many of which they voluntarily subjected themselves to. Walton himself has since taken 16 different lie detector tests, including the one on the popular Fox game show called The Moment of Truth. After being asked a series of questions regarding his life and the UFO experience, Walton was blatantly asked if he was abducted by aliens on November 5th, 1975, upon which he replied a resounding yes. After a dramatic pause, the game show android voice responded, "The answer is false," claiming that his response was a lie. The game show's polygraph methods were highly dubious and have since been called out as having almost no legitimacy. So that sucks. So, I guess the whole point of that game is just to super embarrass you. I saw a preview of one. It was like, have you ever, not washed your hands and then whatever in public? And they're like, yes, super embarrassed. They ask, super absurd, questions. It's, have you ever smelt your dirty underwear? It's yeah, B.
Like a hard troll, just to get you riled up.
Yeah, definitely. It's we're all human. I don't know. Anyways, Walton has continued to tell his story over the past 43 years without discrepancies or incongruities in his memory and the details he claims. The other crew members with him that night have all maintained their side of the story and even refused $10,000 bribes to contradict the official narrative. At least they have his back.
That's saying something.
Yeah, seriously. In the tests administered to the Walton's crew the night he was allegedly abducted, Arizona's polygraph expert, C.Y. Gilson, determined examinations prove that these 5 men did see some object that they believe to be a UFO. Walton points to this as the best hard evidence supporting his case, saying the odds of 5 men fooling a polygraph test on the same subject are 1,000,001, citing the president of the American Polygraph Association. Only 1 member of the group didn't pass, but his test was marked inconclusive. So that's pretty big.
Yeah, for
that's
sure.
Huge.
I was thinking of it in my head. I'm like, okay, well, anybody, not anybody, but it isn't super difficult to fudge polygraph tests, but if it's multiple people, then that makes it even more solid that, they're not faking it.
Yeah. And I wonder if they are, sticking to it, maybe, I'm just speculating, but maybe if they didn't believe it, but then they still feel guilty that they left him, and he could have died, maybe they're just alright, man, this is one way we can make it up to him, or something.
Or also something else happened, and they all believe it to be true.
Yeah. That's true. In recent years, Walton has wondered if he may have been killed that night he was struck by the UFO's bolt of energy. He says he believes it's possible he was unintentionally shocked by the energy that was a result of the craft's propulsion system. Realizing that he'd been killed, the extraterrestrial entities may have brought him on board the craft and resuscitated him.
Oh shit, we done fucked up.
Yeah, like,
let's fix this guy.
It's like Lilo and Stitch when they're like, you can't mess with the mosquito species. They're endangered.
Right. It's just Pleakley and Jumba trying to cover up their tracks.
Oh, I love Lilo and Stitch.
Same.
Walton continues to speak about his experience to this day, making appearances at UFO conventions while taking interviews from a multitude of skeptics and believers. His story became one of the classic abduction stories after the movie Fire in the Sky that was produced in 1993, recounting his experience in Hollywood's overly dramatized way. Through the movie vary slightly from Walton's story, it was critically acclaimed and has remained a cult classic among sci-fi fans.
Never seen it.
Me neither, but I really want to watch it now.
Have you seen that Close Encounters of the... Is it the Third Kind?
I think it is the Third Kind. Is that the one with the owls?
No. This is an older movie. It's actually a really good movie. This one guy ends up getting, like, these visions, and, like, his visions tell him to, like, build this mountain thing, so, like, all his family thinks he's going crazy, because he's, like, building these hills out of, like, all the stuff in the fridge, and just, like, losing his shit, but it's actually, like, the aliens, like, commanding him or something, but they ended up, like, meeting the aliens, and, like, they all have a moment where they, like, play music together. I don't know. It's a really good movie.
I don't think I have, but it's like modern day Moses. You know, everybody thought Moses, like, the world's not gonna flood. Why are you building this big ass boat, son?
Yeah, kinda, huh? That's funny.
So I just pulled up pictures from the Close Encounters of the Third Kind aliens, and they're so cute. Oh,
aren't they?
God, they're so little, and he's like so happy.
And they're so friendly and nice.
They're like giant babies walking around.
It's definitely a good watch.
Okay. I'll definitely have to watch it. Because I know it's like a cult classic. It's been around for a while.
Yeah, it's pretty old, and like, I'm always just like, meh. But no, it was really good.
Cool. I'm excited.
1977.
Dang.
Those special effects, man. State of the art.
I know, they're still so cute. I love it. I love aliens so much, you guys. I hope you know. I just think it's like the coolest thing. If I could be abducted by aliens, I think, well, the nice aliens, I think that would be super cool. But I honestly don't think our brains would be able to comprehend a species that we have not yet encountered. Like, I think we would just freak the fuck out, which is why they have to abduct us or whatever when we're sleeping and when we're, like, in a different mindset.
Yeah, no, I definitely think there's some, like, physics there that won't compute right.
Definitely. We would freak out for sure. So what do you got for me today, Pinky?
So, my story is about Granger Taylor. It's pretty interesting. I think you're gonna like it.
I'm ready.
On the evening of Saturday, November 29th, 1980, 32-year-old Granger Taylor departed his parents' farmhouse near the town of Duncan in the Cowichan Valley on the southern Vancouver Island, British Columbia, Canada.
Ooh.
Granger vanished, apparently into space, never to be seen alive again. Some closest to Granger believe his mysterious disappearance was an actual close encounter of the third kind. They're convinced that, somehow, aliens really did abduct Granger Taylor.
Interesting. Okay, in Canada. I feel like I don't hear enough stories in Canada, so I'm ready.
Alien abduction stories are rare. Exceptionally rare. Most people dismiss an alien abduction story as pure bullshit or the product of a mentally impaired mind amplified by hallucinogens. But the story of Granger's alien encounter and subsequent space trip are based on interesting facts. That's partly because Granger Taylor told his friends and family about ongoing telepathic alien contact and left a note explaining what he was up to the night he left home forever.
No way. Oh my gosh.
On the Google Drive, I have pictures and pictures of the note he left.
Oh my gosh. Note he left. Oh my gosh, I'm so excited. Ah! What were they telling you, homie? I need to know.
Here's what Granger's message said. Dear Mother and Father, I have gone away to walk aboard an alien ship as reoccurring dreams assured a 42-month interstellar voyage to explore the vast universe, then return. I am leaving behind all my possessions to you as I will no longer require the use of any. Please use the instructions in my will as a guide to help. Love, Granger.
Huh, okay. 42 months, very particular. Do you know any, background about this guy? Was he abused?
They go into it a little
anything?
bit. He doesn't really have a whole lot wrong. You know, it's funny, I didn't think of this before. The number 42? What is the meaning of life? The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy? Have you seen that?
Oh my god, no way. Yes, but I don't remember, everything about it. It's been
they
so long.
They asked the supercomputer what the meaning of life is, and it takes 276 years for it to come up with the answer, and then they're all there, and they're like, the meaning of life is 42. And everybody's just like, what?
And they're like, this is it! Oh my gosh! Oh, okay, I gotta Google the numerology behind 42.
I think I've actually looked into it before, and the author of the book says he didn't mean anything by it, but there's a lot of people who've, broken it down and, all this stuff, but I don't know.
Yes. So, what is the symbolism of 42? Angel number 42 is a symbol of passion, or to be more exact, pursuit of passion in life. This number is an encouragement to all those who are afraid of letting go and enjoying their life to the fullest. That is a brief overview, because it goes in depth, son.
All right. So, hearing a will mentioned in a runaway note immediately raises suicide suspicions. However, Granger modified his will and replaced the words death and deceased with departure and departed. The problem with suspecting suicide in Granger's case was he had absolutely no sign of suicidal thoughts or tendencies. In fact, Granger Taylor had everything to live for. He was an exceptionally bright and gifted man. The best description for Granger was an eccentric genius. Although Granger was odd in some ways and did a few things outside the lines, no one ever called Granger Taylor crazy. Associates described Granger as eccentric, a prodigy, brilliant, and a mechanical guru. Over his short time on Earth, Granger lived up to these terms and more. However, there's far more to the Granger Taylor story.
I'm ready. Oh my gosh, this is so good.
Granger quit school after grade 8. He'd said he'd learned every academic thing he needed to know, including reading, writing, and arithmetic at a level far beyond his years. Granger went to work repairing and building machinery. He proved a natural machinist and mastered self-taught skills ranging from welding to electronics. They say Granger was somewhat shy and reclusive, although by no means antisocial or a hermit. He was a large man, but extremely gentle and generous. Granger was never one for girls or the party scene. Rather, he immersed in mechanics and engineering. He remained single and attached to his parents, where he slept in his childhood bedroom on their 21-acre rural property.
I do want to make a comment about the picture you have of him on the drive. He looks like the most cuddliest, the nicest guy. He's wearing a nice flannel shirt tucked in. He has a beard. I don't know. He just looks like a sweetie pie.
He looks like that guy on Stranger Things, the sheriff.
Oh my gosh,
kinda.
he does! Yeah. Yep. Oh.
Yeah. Big mountain man.
Yeah, he's definitely a mountain man.
At age 12, Granger scratch-built an automobile powered by a one-cylinder engine he designed. By 14, he could tear down and rebuild practically every type of motor vehicle and moved on to heavy equipment. That took in logging trucks, farm tractors, and vintage bulldozers.
Amazing. Oh my gosh, you know what I was doing at 12? Nothing.
Playing with Play-Doh and Barbies.
Not even thinking about building a freaking one-cylinder engine. That's amazing.
Right. One of Granger's most ambitious projects was rescuing a derelict steam locomotive from an abandoned logging site. He disassembled the train engine and packed it piece by piece from the bush to his farm. Over time, Granger restored the locomotive to full working order. Today, it sits on display at the British Columbia Forest Museum in Granger's hometown of Duncan. Not satisfied with the wheels and tracks, Granger developed a keen interest in flight. His mechanical curiosity was unbounded, and he longed to understand how airplanes operated. As strange as it seems, Granger's source was the fuselage of the World War II Kitty Hawk fighter plane. As with the locomotive, Granger found parts for the plane. What he couldn't buy, he built. Within 2 years, Granger made the Kitty Hawk airworthy. Although he didn't have an airstrip at his farm, let alone a pilot's license, Granger's intelligent creativity came up with a flight plan. He installed restraint bars in the back of the plane and then chained it to a massive tree. By powering up the engine and working on the flaps, Granger elevated the aircraft and held it to hover.
That's amazing. Oh my gosh. And it's all self-taught. Like, he didn't have any books that we know of or, like, anything, which is, I believe he's the starseed, which means that he was probably from space in the first time, brought to humanity to learn more about us, so that way when he can go back up to space, he can tell aliens about us.
Maybe. That would make sense, yeah.
That's my hypothesis.
Granger's farm plane was a huge community hit. Many people watched him demonstrate the fighter, which he eventually sold to a collector for a tidy sum. Speaking of money, Granger was no slouch when it came to business. By the time he disappeared, Granger amassed a considerable bank account, which he left for his parents. Although Granger was somewhat reserved, he was exuberant about helping the local youth. Granger gave his time and teachings to help kids throughout the Cowichan Valley. There was never a hint of impropriety with young folks associating with Granger, and he never had the remotest hint of being troublesome in the community. Granger Taylor was clearly project-oriented. Once he mastered the mechanics and engineering principles of mobility-like vehicles, locomotives, and aircraft, Granger extended his interest horizons. He began studying spacecraft, which led to his curiosity about intelligent alien life forms and what advanced technology they likely possessed. Granger made it his mission to find out. The late 70s were a time fixated on the possibilities of space and space life. This was the time of TV shows like Star Trek and movies such as Close Encounters and Star Wars. UFO reports were common, and a few alien abduction stories sporadically surfaced. Granger watched, read, and observed everything he could about space travel and what machines would take him there. That led to Granger Taylor building a flying saucer. He made it from 2 huge satellite TV dishes and welded together a convincing concoction which, for all the world, looked like a classic UFO shape often depicted in alien contact stories. So he didn't intend on flying that saucer. He just used it as a think tank where he'd spend hours in quiet thought. Meditating is a good analogy. And it was during long periods of solitude and altering his state of consciousness that Granger Taylor began to have episodes where he reported telepathic contact with voices from beyond. One of Granger's closest friends and confidants was a man named Robert Keller. Bob Keller was younger than Granger, just in his late teens when Granger departed. Bob still lives in the Cowichan area and firmly believes Granger was in full control of his faculties despite disclosing his conversations with distant deities. Bob Keller also described a side of Granger many didn't see. It turns out Granger Taylor loved smoking marijuana. He did some of his best thinking while stoned. Keller states he and Granger would seal up the spaceship and turn it into a giant hotbox where they'd blast away and reef themselves into another reality.
That's amazing. Oh my gosh, the devil's lettuce did it again.
He just seems like such a cool guy. I love him so much.
I know. Oh my gosh. So they Well, I guess it's just called hot box. I thought it was called something different. You know, like Spaceman, when you put something over your head and then people, like, blow smoke into it.
No, I've never heard of that. Really?
No? Oh my gosh, yeah. Okay, so you take, like, a high school story, guys. Don't judge me. I never did it. But you take No, I would die. Honest to God. But what these people did is they cut, like, half of a 5-gallon jug, you put it over your head, and then you put a towel over it so the smoke doesn't leave. And then everybody blows, you know, like, smoke in it, and it's called the Spaceman. And then once you can't even see your surroundings, you take it off, and then, yeah.
Sounds kind of gross, actually. I don't really want to breathe everybody's nasty extra air pot smoke.
No, I don't think I could ever do that. I'd probably have a panic attack.
Same. During these weedy sessions, Granger elaborated on his reoccurring alien contacts and how they'd offered him safe passage to distant parts so Granger could experience advanced technology firsthand. Granger told Keller that his departure day was approaching and leaving Earth was something he had to accomplish. Bob Keller also disclosed that besides cannabis, Granger experimented with hallucinogens, specifically LSD. In later media interviews, Granger's sister confirmed the LSD abuse, but was steadfast it was simply a curiosity for Granger to expand his mind. There were no reports Granger was a habitual drug user with a bad trip trouble that would negatively affect him or impair his thought process. Granger Taylor's parents also confirmed Granger did some drugs, but he had no substance abuse issues, including alcohol. Granger didn't drink.
Because you mentioned, you know, that no substance abuse and, you know, he's just basically doing this. A lot of people actually do LSD and ayahuasca and things like that. DMT, like you said, for the spiritual journey and events to, like, expand their mind and to, like, learn more about themselves. Like, ayahuasca you do to help combat traumas. So a lot of trauma survivors will do that. So I think it's really cool that he's not doing it for trauma, but just to expand his knowledge. That's awesome.
Yeah, most definitely. You know me, and you know that I'm very much into psychedelics, and it's not really something that you can abuse. Like, even if you wanted to, if you take it over and over, it just stops working. Like, it's...
Yeah, it doesn't have a purpose, but I feel like if you're, like, on that soul-searching journey or whatever, like, it could definitely help you out, maybe.
Psychedelics are amazing. They're, I think they're actually trying to get, like, some MDMA studies going for people with depression and anxiety and PTSD. Yeah. It's really helpful for those kind of people.
Yeah, I think a law was approved in Denver for them to, test psilocybin shrooms, basically, to start, you know, kind of testing with that to see.
They just decriminalize them. That's amazing.
Maybe that's what it was. Yeah, decriminalize them instead of testing.
Go Denver.
I know! Let's move to Denver, guys.
Right. The parents were also adamant Granger showed no sign of mental illness and absolutely no hint of suicidal plans. To all Granger's family members and friends, Granger was on a continuous curiosity voyage, and it was a natural step to seek higher knowledge. Family and friends were divided about the alien abduction theory surrounding Granger Taylor. Some believed it and some didn't, but all agreed Granger's whereabouts were a total mystery. As Jim Taylor, who was Granger's father, put it at the time, "It's hard to believe Granger went off in a spaceship, but if there's a flying object out there, he's the one to find it." Granger Taylor's 42-month hiatus expired on May 29, 1984. During the time, Jim and Grace Taylor kept their back door unlocked and their son's bedroom intact in the remote hope the ship would land and Granger would return unharmed. It didn't work out that way. There's a picture of his parents on the drive, too.
Oh my gosh, let me take a look at him. Sweet babies. Oh my gosh, they're so old. They're like grandparents. That breaks my heart. So they're like, "It's okay, honey, you can come home.
We'll leave the door open for you."
Oh, my heart. Go on.
In 1986, nearly 6 years after Granger left the note for his folks, forest workers discovered a giant blast site in the woods, not too far from the Taylor's farm. As the crow flies, there was an overgrown debris area roughly 600 feet in diameter. This was off a secluded service trail near the top of Mount Prevost, which was the high point overlooking the Cowichan Valley. Strewn about in the blast site were vehicle parts. Shrapnel was embedded in trees as well as above the ground, and other parts were driven deep into the soil. The police investigated and soon tied the blast site to Granger Taylor. Within the debris field were parts displaying the vehicle identification number recorded on Granger's pickup. A police dog search found fractured human bones, the largest being a left arm humerus. And sadly, Grace Taylor confirmed the clothing remnants recovered from the site were consistent with the shirt she had made for her son.
No!
Yeah,
That's
super sad.
So sad.
There was nothing left of Granger Taylor's body to make a positive ID. His skull and teeth weren't found, and this was the days before prevalent DNA testing. However, the circumstances were sufficient for the coroner to confirm Granger's death, and the police were satisfied there was no foul play, despite the enormous explosion. It's weird to me that there were no teeth. I don't know 100%, but I think that teeth are really hard to destroy. I don't know.
That's
very
so
weird.
Sad. Even if he didn't make it and he died, he probably built his own spaceship and didn't make it.
Officially, Granger Taylor's missing persons case was closed with his classification of death being undetermined. Coroners have 5 death classifications available to wrap up their investigation: natural, accidental, suicide, homicide, and undetermined. Common sense dictates no case should arguably be made of Granger dying from natural causes. Additionally, there was no evidence that someone killed Granger to establish a homicide ruling. It's a stretch to think Granger accidentally blew himself up, certainly not with a force of that magnitude. That leaves a hard look at suicide. However, coroners must follow a guideline called the Beckon test, where the balance of probabilities must overwhelmingly support a conclusion the descendant intentionally took their own life. In Taylor Granger's case, the coroner obviously struggled with firmly concluding the death was a suicide. One supporting pillar for a suicide conclusion is any history of suicidal thoughts, expressions, or tendencies. In Granger's case, there was nothing, absolutely nothing, in his past to suggest he was planning a suicide, with the normal understanding, that is. It appears the presiding coroner ruled with caution and gave Granger the benefit of the doubt despite knowing about suspicious occurrences happening the day Granger Taylor said goodbye. Jim Taylor reported that a significant volume of dynamite disappeared from his farm along with Granger. The Taylors were licensed to keep and use explosives for stump clearing on their land. Granger was completely familiar and competent with using dynamite and engineering explosive demolitions. Something else happened on November 29th, 1980. A 100-year storm hit the Cowichan Valley that evening. It knocked down trees and killed power across the area. Granger knew it was coming, and he'd told Bob Keller that the aliens would arrive under the cover of a storm to camouflage their presence. Granger was last seen leaving a diner where he was the usual patron. This was about 6:30 p.m. It's a half-hour drive from the restaurant to the top of Mount Prevost through a tight, switchback dirt road. Around 8 p.m., the residents at the mountain base heard a loud boom. It wasn't consistent with storm thunder. Looking back, there's no doubt Granger Taylor died in a vehicle explosion. The evidence is overwhelming and conclusive. There's also no realistic doubt Granger orchestrated the blast that ended his life. The question is why? Why did an apparently untroubled and free-thinking man do something so outrageous? Why did Granger plan his demise and tie it to contacting alien intelligence? What in the world was going on in that brilliant mind? I don't think this puzzle can be solved. It can only be speculated. Perhaps the answer lies within the mind and where sources for ideas originate, no matter how bizarre, creative, or devastating these notions can be. Most people believe in some sort of a higher power that provides all the information necessary to govern the universe. You can call it God, infinite intelligence, or Mother Nature. Regardless of the name, human minds seem programmed to tap into this source of ideas that Plato called forms. That's where the word information derives. Granger Taylor was a remarkable man. In life, he was inventive and inquisitive. Many similar people are described as a blend between nuts and geniuses. Maybe it's because their thoughts are so far out on some intelligence plane that normal people like me can't relate. Possibly a genius like Granger projected his thoughts into a part of the universe not experienced by most humans at this point of our evolution. Maybe in return, some sort of thought pool, call it an alien presence if you'd like, responded to Granger and communicated in some telepathic way. Strange things can happen. Think how lesser species like spiders get instructions to build web structures that humans can't create with our current technology. There's an argument that Granger had some sort of undiagnosed mental trouble. Compounding the mental illness, his mind might have been polluted by illicit drugs. No.
Yeah, I don't like that.
But that doesn't wash, given Granger's history and the mass of literature indicating few people, if any, are driven to a thoroughly planned out suicide by a mellow pot buzz or a good acid trip. No, something else had to be going through Granger Taylor's head when he rocketed himself and his truck on the top of the mountain. Perhaps it was a true belief he mentally connected with alien intelligence forms, and the only way to leave his earthly shackles and join them was by blowing himself into space. If that's the truth, then maybe in some bizarre psychological way, aliens really did abduct Granger Taylor's mind.
That's insane, but I love it.
I think it was aliens, 100%. I think that he maybe, like we were talking about with the DMT, his mind vibrated on a higher frequency and he was really in contact with them, and that's what it was. It's like, you have to leave this earth to be with us.
Well, that's also like what that one cult did. I don't remember their name, but it was like a cult of like hundreds of people, and they drank the Kool-Aid to leave their physical statue to like join the aliens.
Like Jim Jones?
Something like that. But, I mean, obviously his story is way different. It's just, he's too smart. He's too much of a genius. And I feel like him blowing himself up, I guess, makes more sense because other abduction stories, like, they're just gone. They're missing, you know? They don't find bones or anything anywhere, so maybe he had to, in a way, kill himself to join aliens?
Maybe they had, like a form he could absorb, or I don't know.
Yeah.
It's insane.
That's crazy. Or, I mean, he sounds like he's so incredibly smart, like most geniuses. Maybe, you know, with the whole mental thing, hypotheses people had could have been like, you know, I know what I'm trying to say, but I just don't want it to sound like offensive. You know how like incredibly smart people are, you know, sometimes on like a spectrum of certain things.
Oh yeah.
And maybe that's why he like never married or like never was like interested in that, like Nikola Tesla we talked about in our last episode.
It's possible. A lot of people on the spectrum have like social problems.
Yeah.
And don't connect with people in the same way, but like those kinds of people are often the most brilliant.
Mm-hmm. Oh, I would have been his friend. I wish I'd known him. Man, I love me my alien stories. That was a good one.
I really liked it. I thought you'd like it too.
Yeah, that one was a good one. I haven't heard about that. And he just looks like such a nice guy. I'll have to take these pictures and share them to our Facebook so you guys can see them.
Most definitely.
Oh, I love it. And that wraps up the Spooky Scary Show. If you wish to stay up to date with us, be sure to follow us on YouTube, Facebook, and Instagram. If you want to share your experiences or request a topic, email us at spookyscaryshow@gmail.com. Thanks for listening.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Spooky. Woo.